Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing? Give me just a moment. I was just pulling a couple of things up and I had an issue with it, so just give me one moment. I hope everybody's doing well and that you had a good start to your weekend. Hey, Mrs. Thang 65. Thank you so much for joining. And thank you for sending me the email to cover this case because it's certainly a sad one. Hey, Lynn, how are you guys doing? Hey, from the 3021, it's good to see you. Hey, Jennifer, I hope you feel better soon. Hey, Dee. Hi, John. Good to see you. Always good to have you guys here. So we're going to talk about the Lauren Spierer case from 2011. She disappeared from Bloomington, Indiana, after a night out with friends. For those of you that aren't familiar with her case, we're going to go over it from the very beginning tonight and talk about actually just what happened to her. Hey, AJ. So good to see you. Thank you for joining. Hey, Lipsha. Good to have you. So Lauren Spierer was a young woman, 20 years of age, who was a sophomore, finishing her sophomore year at the University of Indiana in Bloomington, Indiana. And on June 3rd, 2011, following an evening at Kilroy's Sports Bar in Bloomington, Indiana, she went missing. She has never been heard from since, and they've never found her body. And her disappearance really generated a ton of national press coverage. But at this time, she is presumed to be deceased, and her case remains unsolved. Hey, Michelle, good to see you. Thank you, Lipsha, for correcting me. No problem, Digital. I totally get it. So Lauren was born on January 17th, 1991. Her father was an accountant, and she grew up in Scarsdale, New York, which is a very affluent town in lower Westchester County. And after high school graduation in 2009, she enrolled at Indiana University, where she was studying textiles merchandising. Lauren was active in the Jewish community at Indiana, and she had spent the previous spring break planting trees in Israel on behalf of the Jewish National Fund. And Lauren met her boyfriend, Jesse Wolf, and her friend Jay Rosenbaum years earlier at Camp Towanda, which was a summer camp in the mountain town of Honesdale, Pennsylvania. And it was there that she met other Indiana University future students who later became her circle of friends while she was at Indiana. On the night she disappeared, Lauren was drinking with several friends. Her boyfriend stated that he did not go out with her. He was going to be doing other things that night, that evening, and he did not go. But they did text back and forth, and he talked to her by text prior to him going to bed. According to the witnesses, Lauren was very, very intoxicated that evening. Bloomington police used video surveillance footage and witness statements to create a timeline of Lauren's whereabouts before her disappearance. On Friday, June 3rd, at 12:30 a.m., witness reports that Lauren left her apartment with a friend named David Rohn, and the pair went to Jay Rosenbaum's apartment, and she met up with a boy named Corey Rossman, who was Rosenbaum's neighbor. At 1:46 a.m., she is seen entering Kilroy's bar, and at 2:27 a.m., she is seen exiting that same bar with Rossman. Lauren left her cell phone and her shoes at the bar. She had taken off her shoes when she walked out onto the sand-covered patio, and no one's really sure why she left those things behind, but it's believed that it's because she was highly intoxicated. Rossman walked Lauren to her apartment complex, and at 2:30 a.m., she is seen entering Smallwood Plaza Apartments, where her residence was located. A passerby by the name of Zach Oakes noticed her level of inebriation and asked if she was okay. He was concerned about her. After she left the apartment at 2:48 a.m., she entered an alley that runs between College Avenue and Morton Streets. Security cameras mounted on nearby apartments show her exit the alley at 2:51 a.m. and walk toward an empty lot. Lauren's keys and her purse were found along this route through the alley. Years earlier at Camp Tawanda, a summer camp in the mountain town of Honesdale, Pennsylvania, is where she met some of her close friends that she would spend time with, and some of them this very evening. She and Rossman arrived at Rossman's apartment shortly afterward. Michael Beth was Rossman's roommate, and he was at the apartment, and Rossman himself was very intoxicated and stumbling. He vomited on the carpet on the way upstairs, and Beth stated that he escorted Rossman to bed. He then tried to persuade Lauren to sleep over for her own safety. He claimed Lauren said she wanted to return to her own apartment. At 3:30 a.m., Beth said he phoned his neighbor Rosenbaum, wanting him to take care of Lauren. Beth said that Lauren was attempting to get Beth to drink with her at her own apartment. She eventually went to Rosenbaum's apartment, where he observed a bruise under her eye, presumably sustained in a fall earlier that evening. She told him she didn't know how she got the bruise. 2 calls were placed from Rosenbaum's phone shortly before she is reported to have left his apartment, and Lauren placed both calls. One to Roan. Lipsha, thank you so much. You guys are so kind. Jennifer, thank you. Thank you for the super chats, you guys. So she placed one call. Hey, Tech Death, it's good to see you. She placed one phone call to Roan and one to another friend. Neither of them picked up, and no messages were left. At 4:30 a.m., Rosenbaum reports that Lauren left the apartment, and this is the last reported sighting of her. He reports last seeing her at the intersection of 11th Street and College Avenue, headed south on College. She was last seen barefoot, wearing black leggings and a white shirt. Several hours later that morning, her boyfriend, Wolf, sent Lauren a text. He received a reply from an employee at the bar that she was at the night before, Kilroy's. Wolf reported Lauren missing at that moment. In August of 2011, police conducted a 9-day search of the Sycamore Ridge landfill in Pimento, south of Terre Haute, for clues in the disappearance. The landfill is where trash from Bloomington is hauled after a stop at a transfer station. And the Bloomington Police Department, the Indiana University Police Department, and the FBI all aided in that search. As of May 24th, 2013, investigators had received 3,060 tips on Lauren's disappearance. 100 of them received during the first half of 2013. When I read that, when I was going through these reports and trying to find information on Lauren's case, something struck me, you guys. I mean, stop and think about how many tips have been turned in on Delphi. Over 50,000 in 5 years. And this poor girl has 3,000 in two years after her disappearance. I mean, I'm just like, I thought that was incredible. In April of 2015, the Bloomington police announced that they were investigating a possible link between Lauren's disappearance and the murder of another Indiana University student, Hannah Wilson. Wilson went missing on April 24th, 2015, after visiting Kilroy's, the same bar that Lauren visited the night she disappeared. Wilson was last seen getting into a taxi in front of the bar and driveway. Her body was found the next morning in Brown County, and a local man named Daniel Messel was arrested for her murder after his cell phone was discovered near her body. In July of 2015, the family had hired a private investigative firm out of New York, and Mr. Deedle concluded that the two cases are unrelated, and any similarities between the two cases were simply coincidental. On January 28th, 2016, the FBI and other police agencies investigated a property in the 2900 block of Old Morgantown Road in Martinsville, approximately 20 miles north of Bloomington. And according to a statement released by the FBI, investigators were following upon leads and tips in Morgan County regarding the disappearance of Lauren. The property was connected to a man, Justin Wagers, who resided there with his mother and his father, a stepfather, and Wagers was suspected of exposing himself to numerous local women. Investigators searched the property with cadaver dogs, which hit on a barn, but nothing was found. Anthropologists conducted a dig and sifted dirt from this barn where the cadaver dogs hit, but they ended up finding nothing. Investigators also towed a white truck from the property belonging to Wagers. A number of theories have emerged in reference to what happened to Lauren that evening. Lauren's parents have stated that they believe their daughter is deceased based on her level of intoxication. They also felt that she may have been drugged while she was at that bar. We felt somebody could have slipped something into her drink at Kilroy's, said Robert Spierer. The family has voiced suspicions about the men that she was with that evening, as well as her boyfriend, since they refused, all of them, to take police issued polygraphs and retain lawyers soon after her disappearance. While the parents have not made any specific accusations, they do believe the two know more than they have told police so far. The men responded that they have taken privately administered polygraphs as well as one from the FBI, since they do not trust the Bloomington Police Department. They say they have retained lawyers. On June 3rd of 2021, on the official Lauren Spierer updates from her family Facebook page, Lauren's mother wrote this: 10 years ago today, in the early hours of June 3rd, 2011, Lauren became a missing person. What started as an evening with friends ended tragically for Lauren and for our family. There is no evidence proving Lauren ever turned that corner at 11th and College Avenue around 4:30 a.m. There has never been any suspect named. My heart goes out to anyone searching for a missing loved one. When you are in it, you can't see beyond it. You try everything humanly possible to get answers, and you are willing to work from first light until you collapse exhausted at the end of the day. You read everything that's written, every blog, every Facebook post, every tweet, every comment at the end of every article you have access to, just hoping that someone will post something to move your case forward. You open your door to the worst of humanity. Despite and desperate to believe their convincing lies, but I think the worst offense comes from those who hold the answers and refuse to share them. You are gullible. You are exposed to things that you've never known about and wish you had never learned about. I empathize with you. I walk in your shoes. I carry the same burden. I wish we never had to experience this. If you are fortunate, you will find that there are just as many compassionate people in this world. They work beside you just as tirelessly. They step in when you cannot. They take risks. They put their lives on hold. They use every avenue at their disposal to help you. And they keep in touch on those most difficult of days. They remind you that you are not alone in this nightmare, and they ask for nothing in return. This is what I know. What happened to Lauren was shocking. It is inconceivable to have spoken to her hours before, discovering that it would be for the very last time. Shocking that someone so loved could vanish without a trace, but entirely possible. It did happen, and 10 years later, I still struggle. The space that once held hopes and dreams for Lauren will never heal. It is replaced by an ache fueled by the not knowing, and I have learned to manage my days, my months, and years. But in an instant, something will happen which sends me reeling back to the day it all happened. I try my best. I will survive. I will never forget. I do not need a day like today to remember, because every day is a day of remembrance. I am especially grateful to Rob and Rebecca, my husband, my daughter, who share in this tragic loss, without whom I could not have survived. I end, as always, hoping today is the day and reminding the reader that anything small could be big. Lauren lost but never forgotten, forever in our hearts. Lauren Spierer. It's just really hard to read that. I don't understand how people can know something and not speak out. I think, um, I think back to all the crimes that we talk about and all the cases that we talk about, and somebody knows something. You don't People just don't fall off the face of the planet. Um, I can't imagine Charlene's heartache of knowing that her daughter was out there and not knowing what happened to her or where she is and wanting to bring her home. Um, those men that were with her that night, there's something that just doesn't smell right there. Somebody knows something about what happened to her. I know that there was quite a few theories. Um, the police talked about the fact that about a month or two prior to this, Lauren had been arrested on public intoxication. At that time of her arrest, they found a small amount of cocaine in her room. Um, and they went on to say that it wasn't uncommon at all for students her age to party. And a lot of kids go to college and that's what they're there for. That's what they want to do. They get sucked into that um, whole culture of partying and stuff. And what's so scary for our daughters, especially, is that there are people out there that are looking to do bad things, and a lot of these young girls end up getting assaulted and far worse because of the date rape drugs. I know we've all heard of those, and it sounds to me like some people think that Lauren could very really have had her drink altered in some fashion with some sort of a drug because she was so inebriated or acting so intoxicated. And she wasn't there very long to act that way. I'm not sure that anybody really speaks about how much she had to drink at the bar, but to be that knocked down, stumbling drunk just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And no matter what, whatever happened to Lauren, she did not deserve that. I want to pull something up. So just bear with me because I'm going to give a share so that everybody can see her. Hold on one second. I just, when I think about these cases and what happens to these young people, it's just sad. It's so sad. Um, she was such a beautiful young woman. Let's get that one. So I'm taking it that you guys have heard of her story, and what do you guys think about everything that's happened since she went missing? There's a pickup truck, a white pickup truck that they've been looking for. Um, let me find it. Which I think is interesting as well. Hang on a second, guys. There we go. So this is a picture of Lauren and her boyfriend, Jesse Wolf. They had been seeing each other since camp 2 years prior to um, going to the University of Indiana. Hey, Grizz, good to see you. So good to see you. So, hang on. Helicopter parents send their kids off to school states away from home with no tools to recognize danger, having never been out and without adult supervision all their lives. Toy Aries says this. And yes, you are right. Parents, I think sometimes forget how dangerous these environments can be for their kids. I do know that there's been a lot written since Lauren went missing about the Bloomington University of Indiana campus because a lot changed on that campus regarding security after Lauren's disappearance. People were much more um, aware, I guess, of the dangers that could befall. They talked about not going anywhere except in pairs. Um, so they did try to change some things. I definitely feel that somebody in that group of young men that she had contact with knows something. They're not talking. Um, and I'm not so sure the stories line up either with how they say things went down either. I'm not so sure. Hey, Vince Perkins. Yeah, for Rosenbaum to say that he was concerned about her safety and then allowing her to leave and just go walk off into the middle of the night with no shoes, no purse, no anything. To me, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If you're a person's friend or um, a person who cares about someone and their well-being, I don't think that you would do something like that. That's just my feeling. They have done numerous podcasts. There's been numerous documentaries done about this case. One of the things that I read about her case is that it is one of the most baffling missing persons cases ever. They just don't have anything. It's they have absolutely no evidence of anything. And so Lauren had a heart condition, and there's been talk of what if something like that happened to her. Obviously, the overdose theory has gone around because of the fact that she had cocaine a month or so earlier. So they've talked about that as well, but I don't see that. To me, I see whatever happened to her at the hands of another human being. It's just how I feel. Um, hey Shelly, whose dad picked him up? The boyfriend? They left. Did they leave town? Is that what I understand? There are so many. I was looking at that, Michelle, about Bloomington, Indiana, and there are a lot of missing women around that area. What was that? Hold on a second. I missed something. I'm just going back. Hold on. Lipschitz says that most kids will get through college experience just fine, but statistically we'll lose a couple every year, and incidents like this is pretty rare. Yeah, it's true. Most of them will get through just fine, but you know what? to be that family where they don't is just gut-wrenching. It goes back to when we covered, a month or so ago, Kristen Smart's case, and, 25 years later, and they still don't know where Kristen is. They know what happened to her. They are confident because they're going to take him to trial for her murder, but they still don't have her body. I just can't imagine those poor families and that pain of not knowing for sure. I've heard that too, Lipsha. Um, I had a friend who lives over there by that area, and they were talking to me about that there's rumors that there is a um, serial killer possibly working in that area as well. Oh, I heard about that too from the 3021. Somebody, one of the guys got hit, and I'm not sure what that was all about because what I was reading was not, it was not really clear as to who hit who. So Zach was friends with Lauren's boyfriend. That's interesting. Didn't know that either. Very good. That's good to know. Yeah, see, Michelle said that also a girl that dated somebody, what's his name? He's an actor, and they do believe it may be a serial killer. Yeah, I think that there's one active in that area. That's what I've heard. And it's so sad. You're right, Jennifer. It's just sad. It's just hard this day and age to even want your kids out of your sight. I mean, that's for sure. Daniel Messel always never sat right with me after he killed another college student. He was always cruising around in Bloomington. Yeah, that bothered me too. The fact that he was known for exposing himself, and they usually say things like this escalate. So he went from that to murder because he was, accused of another college student in 2015. So yeah, what would have stopped him from being a suspect, I would think, in Lauren's disappearance. And John, good to see you. Always good to see you. John says killers keep location of their victims in their pocket as a bargaining tool for no death sentence. Yes, they do. And it's so sad because some of them take that to the grave with them. They won't talk or they won't tell. And it's, to me, it's just super sad. Um I heard two different things. He was with his frat party boys watching a sporting event. I think it was the NBA finals was on, and they were supposedly watching that, is why he was not with her that night, but he supposedly did text her before he went to bed. That was what they say. Yeah, he was watching the NBA playoffs. Um, yeah, I don't believe that it was from a fall either. Most often when we fall, we don't get black eyes. Just one thing to keep in mind. So yeah, I think she was hit by somebody. Um, no digital. He was watching with fraternity brothers or roommates, whatever. Yeah, like fraternity brothers don't stick by each other and cover things up. Boy, that's for sure. Um, so hold on a second. Here's another picture of her. And you can just see how that smile, and she was a tiny thing. She only weighed like 100 pounds. She was like 4 foot something. She was super short, super tiny girl. Um, so it wasn't like, she could have very easily been completely overpowered by anyone because she was so small. Here's a picture of her in New York City, overlooking Central Park. She just looks happy. And again, it's just sad. I'm going to stop my screen. Hold on a second. So the private investigator that the family hired um, really went to, he really went to town looking for clues and evidence and anything. He really wanted to help this family. In fact, he just stayed with the case, and um, he's a close family friend now. It's kind of amazing, I think, at how some of this happens. They start in an investigation, with a family or whatever, and then they become lifelong friends, and they just take on the case, and it becomes so personal for them. Um, and like I said, I just go back to Charlene and what she said on the Facebook post. What happened to her daughter was shocking, and it's inconceivable how you could speak to your daughter just a couple of hours and everything is fine, and then find out that that was the last time you would ever speak to her, because she just vanished from the face of the earth without a trace. But she said, it's completely possible because it happened to them. And it is scary. It's so very scary to think that that can happen to anyone. To go out, to think that you're just going to go out for a night of fun while you're in college with friends and to never be seen again. It's just hard to fathom that. But the community was stunned, and they did come out in droves, and there were numbers of searches, and um, people put up flyers, and they put up this huge wooden billboard that they put out by the campus. It was there for years, that had her face on it, and any information wanted for her disappearance. And I don't know, it's just, she was studying fashion merchandising. She was looking at taking summer classes that year. She was going to head to New York. She had an internship with anthropology. She had all the things going for her. So I don't think she would just up and disappear. Um, Obviously, something nefarious happened to her. She had these striking blue eyes, and that beautiful blonde hair, and that beautiful smile. It was just infectious. Just a beautiful girl. They looked for her nationwide. The FBI got involved. They went and looked in the woods in Indiana. They looked in abandoned quarries. They looked in different bodies of water around the area. And of course, they went to the landfill. Lauren's parents, they appeared daily for press conferences, and they ended up offering $100,000 reward for her safe return. I believe her reward is $125,000 right now. Um, Stephen Colbert got involved with her disappearance. It caught his attention. Kim Kardashian, it caught her attention. They were pushing it around on social media extremely loudly. Time magazine actually said that Lauren's is one of the top 5 most mysterious disappearances of all time. Um, and when they hired Bo Dietl and Associates, the private investigator from Bo's company was Mike Ciravolo, is who they hired, and he was the chief of investigations for Dietl and Associates. And he said this is what I found really compelling, is he said that he had never seen a case where there is no suspect, no body, no DNA, no arrest, no autopsy, no court documents, nothing. And he's a former NYPD detective, lieutenant. And he said he's never seen a case like this. So, I mean, even back then in 2011, they had the ability to have video surveillance as far as on these apartment buildings and these places, and they were able to track her because they could see her leaving, and that was one good thing about it. But there was a couple of areas that had no video surveillance at all, so they couldn't see anything. Nobody knows if the story that Rosenbaum tells, the fact that she left him and walked to that corner of 11th and College, if that was true. Nobody, no, there's no evidence she did that. And, when they run out and get lawyered up and refuse to cooperate with police, it really makes things much more difficult. I can understand to a degree people doing that because of fear, but the boys, um, right, they did. As far as I know, they said they gave their DNA and they took private um, lie detector tests because they were afraid they didn't trust the Bloomington police. And that's in answer to your question, Mrs. Thang. They did do that. And Lucia says, I think the last surveillance shot at what has her around the corner. Yeah. What the world? Um, that was weird. Lucia says Delphi, Flora, Spierer. I don't know about Indiana, y'all. Most definite decent folks, I swear. I'm here to tell you, the more and more I read and hear about Indiana and the missing people and the murders, and it's really scary. I always thought Indiana was this quiet, rural, Midwestern place that, it was just a quiet Midwestern place. But I'm beginning to think that it's not. Hey, Vince. Yeah, it would be horrible to deal with. I so agree with you. David Gray says, I'm beginning to doubt if most Hoosiers are good people, and I live here. I think there's a lot of good people in Indiana. I don't want to make it sound like there aren't, but. And I agree with you, Digital. I don't think a bunch of drunks could have pulled this off, leaving no trail without help. I mean, there's nothing, no evidence of anything. It's just, that's what's so scary. That's what makes me think, lean towards a serial killer type thing. But who knows, Um, it's just, I think it was around 4:30 digital, is was the time she left, um, Rosenbaum's apartment. Yeah, there is definitely video of her coming there, but I don't think there's any video of her leaving, which in my mind, that's kind of damning because, um, if you go back to the Chris Watts case, there's video evidence of Shanann coming home and walking in the front door, but there's no video evidence of her leaving the house, except for when he's doing all of his stuff at the truck in the wee hours of the morning. So, again, when you have a video or the capability of having video of what's transpiring around a building or outside of a business or whatever, and you see someone enter, but you don't see someone exit, that's got to throw up red flags, I would think. Okay, so Shelley says the only camera she would have crossed if she left would have been at 10th and College, and that would have been on the office of Rossman's attorney. So it was never released if he had footage of her. Yeah, I would think that the police would have gotten that footage, though. Um, yeah, John, I understand. I totally get it. If it was a serial killer, why aren't they speaking about their friend? I get it. I mean, they're all so quiet and it's all these years later. You would think that they would be, talking about it. Um, One of the things that the Bloomington police did say at the 10th anniversary of her disappearance was that um they wanted to stress that the investigation is not a cold case, but a case that remains and continues to be active. Chief Michael Dykoff said that they continue to investigate leads and work with the FBI to find Lauren. He said the department had received more than 36,000 tips in the 10 years since she vanished. While much time has passed since her disappearance, the search for her is still very active. Over the last 3 to 4 years, investigators have received over 800 tips and executed at least 10 search warrants. So as long as they're getting tips in and they're, executing search warrants, it is an active case, and that it cannot be qualified as cold. He did encourage the media to keep her story alive and for anyone with information to contact the authorities, because anything that we might know, even if it seems small, could provide the answers to her disappearance. Um, and of course, Michael Ceravolo is continuing his search privately as a private eye to search for answers. He said that people often ask him, well, what do you think happened to her? And he said, I wish I had the answer because we wouldn't be doing this interview 10 years later. He said, someone knows something and the family deserves closure. This family deserves an answer as to what happened to their daughter. Where is she? And we're not going to rest until we can bring closure to this very sad story. And, you know, it's just a heartfelt, sad case because I can't imagine being this family. She was a bright girl with a great future ahead of her, and she didn't deserve what happened to her. And there's so many Laurens out there. I mean, there's not a loss for these kinds of stories. We find them easily when you go look for cases to cover. It's just crazy. Um, I do want to mention to you guys that stop for a second here and mention that I do have membership on my channel now, if you're not aware of that. And there are 3 different levels of membership. So if you would like to join and support me and the channel, feel free to do that. The lowest membership is $1.99 a month, and I would appreciate that. You can go to my page on YouTube and click on membership, and it will take you there and talk to you about all the things that you get with the different levels of membership. So I just wanted to bring that up to you. You know, Shelley, I don't think that you can ever totally believe everything that the police tell. But they're not going to release. I mean, if one of the things we have to remember, and we know this from Delphi, is that Indiana is notorious for holding their investigations close to the vest. And it doesn't matter what they're investigating. This is known by other jurisdictions out of state and federally. It is just how they handle things there in Indiana. Now, why they do that, I don't know. I would think the more you shared, the better off you would be. And especially, I think your solvability rate would be better. And when you look at Indiana's solvability of their cases, they rank 48th out of 50 states. They're dead last when it comes to closing cases, and murder cases especially. Their murder case rate is terrible. And I know that seems crazy too. David says, you know, how could parents cover up a murder for their kids? No way my parents would have. Yeah, you know, you wonder about that. But I think when you're placed in that position, some people might find that they might do a lot of things to save their child. But I agree with you. I mean, in the long run, that to me, that's not helping them at all. Hey, God's country. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. But yeah, you know, they yeah, I do. I totally understand what you're saying. It is pathetic and it's terrifying. But I do believe people know, and I believe they need to talk. They need to speak out. You know, she knew Jay Rosenbaum. She knew him before she went to the University of Indiana, or Indiana University. Sorry, guys. And so before she went to Indiana, she knew this person. They were friends. And the 2 people that were new to her, hey Dana, so good to see you. I'm so happy you're here. Late or not, I'm so happy you're here. She met 2 new people at the Indianapolis 500 the week before she went missing. And that was Mike Beth and Corey Rossman. Those 2 boys, men, whatever, she didn't know them prior to. She had just met them the week before. Ciravallo said that he spoke with Rosenbaum and Beth about the night that Lauren went missing. And he said Lauren went to the party with her friend David Rohn, which was a pregame party that was being thrown a few blocks from her apartment on 11th Street and College. And then they left she left that party with Rossman. So it's like she interacted with these guys in different ways that night, almost kind of strange. She went to the party with one friend, left with another friend who she had just met a week before. And I think that is a red flag. In the event that, she was with somebody that she didn't know very well, and that could put her into a bad situation. Um, they ended up at Kilroy's sports bar, her and Rossman, and they had a few drinks. And to me, I mean, she was a tiny girl, so I don't know what a few drinks means exactly, but she was extremely small, and I don't know how well she would have held her liquor or her alcohol. But I think that could also be quite an issue. It's fine, Tech Death. Um, and Shelley says that she believes they searched several vehicles, but she didn't know if it was done in a timely manner, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I do, because again, I go back to the Kristen Smart case where it took them weeks to do things. Um, College police departments and college campuses are not known for investigating these types of crimes well. And I think hers happened, her housing was her housing university housing, you guys, or was it an off campus apartment complex? I think it was an off campus apartment complex, wasn't it? Yeah, Toy, we've talked about that with Delphi. Yep, we have talked about that for sure. Yeah, because Lipschitz, she had been drinking at the pregame party that she went to prior to getting to Kilroy's. So that's true. And like I said, being as small as she is, her body would not have handled a lot of alcohol well. That's just so. I know it was Smallwood Plaza, but do you know if it's off? It's off campus and very upscale. Okay, very expensive. I know they said it's like a whole city block. It's really big, right? Where she lived. She said, Shelley says when they searched the boys' apartment, that carpeting had already been removed. That's quite interesting. That was interesting. Yeah, she was definitely drunk or she had been drugged. One or the other, Vince. She left her shoes because she had gone outside at um at the bar. They have a outside patio that has sand in it. So she had taken her shoes off so that she could walk in the sand. But yeah, she did leave her phone. And she did have the long QT syndrome, which is a heart condition that causes irregular heartbeats, um, which is supposed that she was on medication to control. So lots of alcohol can do funny things to our heart and our bodies. So when Ciravallo said when he spoke with Rosenbaum and Beth about the night that Lauren went missing, he said she went to the party with David Rohn, left the party with Rossman, and then they ended up at Kilroy's sports bar on Walnut Street. And then after a few drinks, they headed back to the Smallwood apartments where Lauren lived. The detective said that inside the building, Lauren ran into four boys that she knew. Ciravallo said they didn't know Rossman, and when they saw Lauren and how intoxicated she was, the boys told Rossman to take her home. Rossman told them that he's got it, and when the boys insisted that he take her back to her apartment, Rossman was reportedly punched in the face and fell to the floor. And the other group apparently fled the scene. See, that just seems weird to me. I mean, why would they have hit him? I mean, I don't know. Maybe, and if they felt like he wasn't gonna do what they asked, you would have thought they'd have stayed with her. I don't know. That just didn't make any sense to me. Um, Once Rossman recovered, he and Lauren left the building and walked along a long alleyway leading up to 11th Street. And according to Ciravallo, he said they were seen on camera stopping at a building where Rossman knocked on the door of an apartment that was occupied by 4 girls that he knew. It was 2:30 a.m. at that time, and all the girls had been sleeping. Ciravallo said he was able to see the Rossman and Lauren on surveillance video, but then lost sight of them when they were going through a vacant lot. And there was no cameras situated on 11th Street anywhere near the townhouses where Rossman, Beth, and Rosenbaum lived. How convenient for that. According to the investigation, Ciravallo said that Lauren left her shoes and cell phone at the bar, and Rossman carried her through that vacant lot that led to his townhouse on 11th Street because there were sharp objects and broken bricks on the ground. So I'm just like, wow. So when they arrived at the apartment that Rossman shared with Beth, Beth was working on a paper for school. Ciravallo said Rossman ended up getting sick and vomiting on the floor, and Beth helped him up the stairs to his room and put him in his bed. And that's when Beth asked Lauren to stay the night on the couch. She declined. Beth then brought Lauren to his neighbor, Jay Rosenbaum, because Rosenbaum knew her, obviously knew Lauren, and Rosenbaum also offered her his couch and a pillow to sleep on, but Lauren wanted to go home. And that's when Ciravallo says, Rosenbaum says that Lauren walked out the door and he went out on his terrace and he called out to Lauren and said, "Text me when you find your phone." And he said that he's not sure, but he thinks he may have seen another individual in the shadows intercept Lauren on the corner, and then he loses sight of her around the corner. It was close to 4:30 a.m. Come on, this is a girl that was your friend or was supposedly your friend that you had known before college. Why would, if you saw some creepy individual in the shadows intercept her, she has no shoes, no purse, no cell phone, wouldn't you go after her to see if she was okay? Wouldn't that be something you'd do? So Rosenbaum is actually the last person that Bloomington police say saw her. And we all know what they say about that when it comes to murder. So Jesse Wolf was her boyfriend. They'd been dating for 2 years before school, and he hoped to marry her. They were in an exclusive relationship, so they were only seeing each other. And he says he reported her missing immediately when he was unable to reach her. And they were able to verify his alibi that he was watching the NBA finals with his fraternity brothers at an off-campus frat house. But they said the last time they saw him, however, was around 2:30 a.m. And then the roommates went to bed. So they don't know what happened with him between 2:30 and 4:30 when Lauren was supposedly last seen. Siravalos thinks that there are 3 scenarios that are still in play as to what may have happened to her. She could have died independently and without the interference of anyone else. She was killed by someone she knew, or she was abducted by a stranger. You have a young, barefoot, very petite young woman who may have had one too many drinks walking home on a dark street in a college town, and having spent some time in Bloomington, Siravallo says there are a lot of unsavory characters roaming the streets at night there. I roamed those streets at night looking for people like this, so that is a possibility, he said. Lauren also had the condition called long QT syndrome, and it's a disorder that causes potentially dangerous irregular heartbeats, and you have to take medication to control it. There is a podcast series out there if you guys want to look it up. It's really good. It's called Finding Lauren. The host of that and the creator of that podcast is Kyra Breslin, and she is the granddaughter of the legendary newspaper columnist Jimmy Breslin. Each week, she explores the details of Lauren's disappearance and interviews different experts who can offer a unique perspective into the case. She has spoken with former homicide detective with the NYPD, a psychoanalyst that specializes in trauma, and Siravallo himself. And Breslin herself is no stranger to Lauren's story because, like Lauren, Breslin attended Indiana University in late August of 2011, just 2 months after Lauren disappeared. And like Lauren, Breslin had been a sophomore as well. Their college life was very similar. Both women lived in the same off-housing apartment units known as Smallwood, and both women went to the same bars in downtown Bloomington and had mutual friends. We walked in very similar shoes, and it's hard to wrap your head around the fact that all these years have gone by and we still have no answers, Breslin told Inside Edition. Going out to the bars in downtown Bloomington, attending parties, drinking, and staying out late with friends was all part of the college culture. But the culture was forever affected by Lauren's disappearance. Lauren's disappearance was something that shaped my college experience and something that I have continued to think about, Breslin said. Her story affected so many people, and it didn't matter how close or how removed you were. It just hit home for so many of us. Breslin told Inside Edition that she only ever heard of wonderful things about Lauren. Lauren was involved with the Jewish community at Indiana University and built a large, loving circle of peers, all of whom remained devastated by her disappearance. The whole summer leading up to attending Indiana, Lauren's disappearance was all anyone could talk about, Breslin said. I felt like at the time everyone seemed to know someone involved or have a theory on what happened. It was very unsettling. In the wake of Lauren's disappearance, undercover police and campus security became an even bigger fixture at IU. Students found using fake IDs were made examples of by local police officers, with many being arrested and left in holding cells overnight. Greek life was a large part of the campus life at IU. Sorority and fraternity houses also put different safety protocols in place, including the buddy system where no one would travel alone. Overall, there was a feeling of unease and anxiety for many students, she said. Many students and their parents were scared to come back to school. My parents were very cautious after Lauren went missing. My mom kept on asking me, "Are you sure about this?" She said of the day she moved into Smallwood, the same apartment complex that Lauren had lived in. The building, which was massive and took up an entire street block, had odd energy, she said. Missing posters and billboards with pictures of Lauren's face could be spotted around Bloomington for months. Every shop window, every tree, every bulletin on campus was a plea for help. It was truly heartbreaking. It was daunting to think that this could have easily happened in a place we all felt so safe and so perfect, Breslin said. But eventually, life on campus went on, and there was an aspect of feeling like you are invincible and like something like this could never happen to you. 10 years later, though, Breslin knows that isn't the case. She's devoted considerable time on her podcast to discuss the party life at IU. It's crucial for people to understand the mindset at the time and how much of a priority partying was for some students. The night that she vanished, Lauren was reportedly appearing very intoxicated. And 9 months before she went missing, Lauren had been arrested for public intoxication. And after she disappeared, police found a small amount of cocaine in her room, according to ABC News. But that was not unique on campus, nor for many people Lauren's age. You're young. You want to have fun. And Indiana was known for that. But this level of partying perpetuated many dangerous situations that didn't start and end with Lauren. Breslin said, I wanted listeners to have a very clear understanding of this moment in time and to see how it could impair judgment, especially for people with Lauren that night. Breslin is now one of the many people searching for answers in the decade-long mystery of what happened to Lauren. I thought if I could offer a new perspective of a college student living in similar circumstances, it might provide insight to the culture and bring attention back to Lauren's story. Ciravallo told Inside Edition that over the last month, he has been looking into some fresh leads that have come in over the holidays. The hard-nosed private detective said his persistence after all these years is still critical. I admire the Spierer family and their courage, and I'm just not going to give up working on this case because I have a great deal of affection for that family and a great deal of respect. I feel like I owe it to them to give them the answer that they so deserve. The Bloomington Police Department told Inside Edition that anyone with information regarding the disappearance of Lauren is urged to speak up. Lauren's boyfriend who reported her missing, or any of Lauren's friends who spent time with her the night she disappeared, did not respond to Inside Edition's request for comments on this article. Neither Lauren's boyfriend or anyone. When reached by Inside Edition, Lauren Spierer said, "We are still hopeful that we will get these answers. Police have not made any arrests or have any named suspects at this time. And as incredible as it sounds, I know the knowing might be worse than the not knowing," she said. So that's Lauren's story. I mean, I'm just at a loss. Like I said, where do you go? How do you investigate a case that has no evidence? There's no body, there's no DNA, there's no evidence, there's nothing. It's got to be one of the most difficult things imaginable for law enforcement. But with that being said, there are still tips coming in. And, if anybody watches this or sees this video live stream tonight that I'm doing, I do have the tip line for anonymous tips to find Lauren scrolling across the bottom of the screen with the Bloomington police phone number and the private investigator's phone number in New York. So they're asking for tips, you can send them to the P.O. Box at 1226 Bloomington, Indiana, or you can call 812-339-4477 or 212-557-3334. And hopefully, it's kind of like everybody says, you talk about these cases and you're going to always have the naysayers who say, stop talking about these cases. They're old. Nobody's going to know anything. But that's not how this works. And I guarantee you, if it was my daughter or my missing child, I would pray that somebody out there would care enough to talk about them and to keep their case out there. Yeah, there might not be a lot that we can talk about investigatively, but we can certainly talk about what we do know. And I feel the same about Delphi. I feel the same about all of our cases. We do this for the families. I do this for the families. I'm not doing this for any other reason but to keep the stories out there for these girls and hope to make a difference. I want, John, that's good. I want Flora to get the same amount of coverage that we've been giving to Abby and Libby. So you're very welcome, Mrs. Thang 65. Thank you so much for sending it to me. I've said before, if you guys have a case that's near and dear to your heart, or something that you would like to see me cover, just email it to me. And I will be more than happy to look into it and see if it's something that we should talk about here. There are so many out there to choose from. So it's not like we don't have a plethora of them. It's sad, actually. And there's so many cold cases. It's mind-boggling. But I'm really happy that I was able to do it for you, Mrs. Thang. I wanted to get that out there right away. I know that a lot of people that watch me are from Indiana, and so they are aware, obviously, of the case, of what happened, and she's one of the top 5 of times, most weird, strange missing person cases ever. I would have to agree with them on that, because how do you not have more information or more mystery? I guess there's so much mystery regarding her disappearance. Digital, I don't know the answer to that question. He asked if Lauren's parents know the boyfriend's parents. I don't know. Don't know the answer to that. But hey, Brad, it's so good to see you. I had not seen you come in. Good to see you. Shelley has a wealth of information. She says she appreciates Shelley being here. She has been tireless and selfless in helping with this case and helping Lauren's parents over the years. It's so wonderful. People that help the families, there's just not enough that we can say about it. And I certainly appreciate that. But yeah, just, keep Lauren's in your prayers and thoughts. And hopefully one day we'll get some answers on what happened to her. It's okay, Michelle. Go ahead. Good night. And thank you so much for being here. Good night, my dear. I'm going to get ready and jump off here in just a couple minutes anyway. But I appreciate all of you coming and supporting me, supporting the channel, being here every night. It's so nice to see you all. Hey, SS Psyops, how are you? You can always watch it on replay. Don't worry that you missed it. If you ever get a chance, you can always listen to it on the replay. When I upload it to YouTube, just remember the chat takes a while to upload. It can take hours, actually, sometimes a lot of hours, but yeah, it will. Hey, Daisy, good to see you. Thank you so much. But yeah, make sure that you hit like and subscribe so that you know when I'm going to have my next uploads or my videos or my live streams. The little bell gives you the notifications. Yeah, Mrs. Thing, don't we though? Yeah, we do. I hear you on that one. But yeah, you're very welcome, Shelly. Thank you for bringing her story to me. And I will definitely keep her on my radar so that if there's anything that new happens, we can definitely bring it back here and talk about it. Because just keeping her case out there is important. There was a lot of things that I learned tonight I didn't know. Of course, I'd heard about her case when it happened, when it was all national, but it's like anything else. It's one of those things when you don't hear stuff, you tend to just put it in the back of your mind. So, but yeah. But anyway, you guys, I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend. I will plan on seeing you guys all on Tuesday night for my next live stream. And I hope you have a great rest of your few days. AJ, thank you so much for being here. It was so good to have you. You guys, she's dropping the link to Finding Lauren's podcast. So if you guys want to go out and listen to that, I really highly suggest it. Kyra Breslin does a really, really good job on that. You're welcome, John. Thank you so much. For all of you guys who have joined my channel, I so appreciate each and every one of you. And all of you that come every night, I appreciate you guys. You're all wonderful. So take care and please, please be safe out there. I'll talk to you all very, very soon.